170th edition of the Illegal Motion College Football Podcast. In Nashville, Tennessee, I'm the professor, Matt Perkins. And deep in across the Harpeth River from me here in the Music City, it's our own offensive coordinator, the coach, Corey Burton.
What's up, guys? Glad to be back in town. It was a quick road trip to my mother's house down in Atlanta, but glad to be back and glad to get another edition of the Illegal Motion College Football Podcast underway.
All right, well, we can't get it underway without the third amigo in the second city, a man who is intimately familiar with the Byzantine Empire. It's our intrepid blogger from Big Ten and Counting, Josh Cook.
Yeah, it's good to be back, too. A little bit longer road trip back from Corey's mom's house, but we got it done, and this is not true at all. I've just been lying for the last 2 weeks. I was in Chicago the whole time. But we do have a guest picker tonight, so that's going to be exciting.
Yeah, we'll be getting to that a little bit later. Looking forward to that one. But first, we got to hit some quick slants, though. So, Josh, I'm going to throw it out to you first. What's your first slant?
Yeah, my first slant is a couple of games that caught my attention. Two feature the top teams in the Big Ten West, and there's a great one in Conference USA. So out west, Iowa hosts Maryland, and Wisconsin heads to Illinois. Both are winnable games, but let's be honest, both opponents also present some interesting challenges. Maryland's rushing attack can be deadly, and Illinois' quarterback, A.J. Bush Jr., well, he's a highly mobile kid, and that could make Shea Patterson's 90 yards last week look small in comparison. If he goes off, that might spell trouble for Wisconsin. Finally, that Conference USA game, it's going to be a dandy on. It's got the division favorite, North Texas, heading to UAB, who is a very quiet 5-1, 3-0, and sitting atop the standings. Blazers already have a tiebreaker over Louisiana Tech. So a win on Saturday, that puts them in a fabulous position to win that division.
Yeah, they'll probably be in the driver's seat if it shakes out the way you think it might, Josh. Coach, what have you got for your first slant?
Well, I'm going to take a look at some of these SEC undercards. A couple games we're going to talk about in deep routes and spread formations. I won't touch on those just yet, but that's Auburn, Ole Miss. We'll get to those in spread formations, and of course that's Mississippi State and LSU. That'll be a fun one to talk about. But a couple that intrigue me: Vanderbilt traveling to Kentucky. Vanderbilt's playing much improved football. Their record doesn't quite show it because they haven't quite put together a full game yet. But Kyle Shermer is playing outstanding. But that Vanderbilt defense has got to figure out a way to stop Benny Snell, Jordan Scarlett, and I think the rest of the Florida running back crew just completely trampled all over Vanderbilt's defense. So they got to figure out some things in the run defense to get that short up so that they can stop Benny Snell. So it'll be an interesting game, one that Kentucky can't take lightly if they're gonna keep pace with the SEC East race. So an interesting game there. The other one is Alabama, third Saturday in October. Tradition right there. They travel to Neyland Stadium to take on Tennessee, and all everyone seems to be able to talk about is Butch Jones's intern role, and I think Saban has reiterated that Butch Jones is not allowed to coach the guys. So he just keeps trolling them, keeps poking them. It's pretty funny. But this one is going to be, all eyes are going to be on Tua Tagovailoa. To see if he's going to actually be able to play in this one. He's had some knee problems here the last couple of weeks, a sprained MCL, or sprained meniscus, I should say. And so everyone's kind of going to be sitting on pins and needles wondering if he's even going to suit up. If not, they're in good hands with Jalen Hurts anyway. So, but just playmakers all over the place. Tennessee got a huge win last week, but this one's going to, other than just getting another chance to watch Alabama and all their talent, they're going to be featured on CBS, the national 2:30 slot, and it's going to be fun to watch Judge Judy work out there at receiver. It's going to be fun to watch Najee Harris work back there at tailback. It's going to be fun to watch the defense, all of that good stuff. A couple other games to mention, and I'll just mention only. Memphis is traveling to Missouri to take on the Tigers. The battle of the Tigers.
A lot of points in that one.
There will be a ton of points, and then there's one other game I'm leaving out, but I don't know.
We can get to those later. Coach, you just mentioned Alabama, which leads into my first slant. I want to talk about some awards. We're halfway through the season, so I want to talk about who I think or I would be giving the awards to at the halfway mark. I'm going to start with the Heisman / Maxwell / Camp Award for just the best player in college football. And as much as I hate to say this, Tua Tagovailoa is deserving of all of those. For the season, he's 88 of 123. That's good for 71.5% completion rate, 21 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, a 248.1 quarterback rating, and he has yet to take a snap in the fourth quarter all season.
We call those Stanley numbers.
Yeah. Well, my runner-up for at least for Davey O'Brien, best quarterback, would be Kyler Murray over at Oklahoma. I know that they've now dropped a game to Texas, but Kyler has still been absolutely outstanding. Doak Walker, best running back in the country. I've got Darrell Henderson from Memphis. He leads the country in total rushing yards. He's got 1,133. He's averaging better than 10 yards a carry. He has 15 total touchdowns, 13 on the ground, 2 receiving. Runner-up, Jonathan Taylor. Even though Wisconsin has been disappointing this year, Taylor is still the second leading rusher in the country and number 1 in all of Power 5 football.
I hate to cut you off, Matt, but it's just – I think that award this year is going to be a bizarre one because A.J. Dillon and Bryce Love both missing now some game time. So.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think the other guy you're going to have to really think about for that award is going to be Travis Etienne if Clemson continues to do well, because they're going to be relying on him more and more as the season goes on. Blitnikoff, best wide receiver. For me, honestly, this was the easiest award to give out. Laviska Shenault at Colorado, 60 catches, 780 yards. That's good for 13 a catch, and he has 6 touchdowns on the season. He has been absolutely nothing short of amazing all year. Runner-up, Hawaii's John Ursua. He is quietly number 1 in the country in total receiving yards. Mackey Ward, best tight end. This is a pretty easy one, too. Texas A&M's Jay Sternberger. He leads all tight ends in the country in yards, average yards for 496, yards per catch 17.1, and touchdowns with 6. He's actually tied with my runner-up, which is Iowa's Noah Fant. You could actually look at either of Iowa's good tight ends, Noah Fant, TJ Hawkinson. Both those guys are great. I think Fant is a little bit better, but I mean, Josh, do you think one of those guys is particularly better than the other?
Fant has bigger playability. Fant is the faster of the two. Fant is arguably the better receiver of the two. Complete package college tight end where they still have to do a lot more blocking. Hawkinson is a better blocker as a result. But I think both of them will play on Sunday, and it's been absolutely a delight to get to see each of them these last few seasons.
Absolutely. Finally, on the offensive side of the ball, the Remington Trophy, best center in the country. I'm giving that to Tyler Biadasz. That might be me being a little bit Badger biased there, but Wisconsin still is number 6 in the country rushing yards per game, and he's been the best offensive lineman on that team this year. Only a redshirt sophomore. He's probably going to go pro after this year and be a very high draft pick. My runner-up, Garrett Bradbury from North Carolina State. He has also been excellent this year. North Carolina State's line as a whole has been remarkable. They've kept Ryan Finley clean all year, doing solid job all over. They're averaging better than right around 7 yards per play as an offense. So, and then going all along with the offense, let's do the Lou Groza Award for the best kicker. Andre Smith from Syracuse is far and away the best kicker in terms of both statistically and just general importance to the team. He leads the country in total points, and he has just been almost automatic for the Orange all season. All right,
has a kicker from a school that plays in a dome ever won it?
Ooh, that's a good question. I can look that up while you do your next slant.
We're down to very few domes, by the way, because Tulane's no longer in a dome. Idaho's no longer FBS. It's just Syracuse. They're hanging out. They're the last ones.
Yeah, well, I'll take a look at that while you give us your second slant.
All right. Well, we are at the midway point of the season, and we haven't done a whole lot on our extended family. We've looked at them a little bit, but it's time to do a look at the other members of Division I football. That's the championship subdivision. So looking at the coaches poll, you got the usual suspects, defending champs and winners of 6 of the last 7 natties. North Dakota State, they lead things at number 1. A very nice up-and-coming Kennesaw State program is second. The old reliable Jackrabbits from South Dakota State sit at third. Routine playoff participant Jacksonville State is having another dandy and ranked 4th. And James Madison, that club to snap the Bison streak, they come in at number 5 in the polls. Other notables that caught my eye, Patriot Power Colgate. They usually dominate that league, but then lose their non-conference games. They flip that script, and they are 6-0 and 13th in the nation. And the Ivies have 2 clubs ranked, Princeton at 18th, and Perko, your hometown Big Green of Dartmouth.
Yeah.
They are 24th. Both those teams are 5-0. And I actually caught the Dartmouth-Yale game on ESPNU a few weeks ago. I was thoroughly impressed by them. They had a really fun program to watch. Some programs having bad years that is shocking is Villanova is winless in their league and 3-4 overall. Nicholls State, a very reliable program. They're still ranked, but they're 4-3 overall. That's not what we're used to seeing. And North Carolina A&T, they are also still hanging in the polls. They have 2 early conference losses, and that has set them well behind the pace in the always competitive MEAC. So finally, check your local listings, because sometimes these games pop up on a network like the CBS Sports Network. Obviously, you can catch them on radio, and thankfully with internet and satellite radio, you'll be able to find them pretty easily. But we got a trio of top 25 matchups to get excited about. Number 12, Wofford hosts the 21st ranked East Tennessee State Club. 17th ranked Stony Brook welcomes number 23 Rhode Island out to an actual island. And then finally, the game of the week, potential upset. Who knows? It's tough to pull off, but 7th-ranked Illinois State heads to the Fargo Dome to take on number 1-ranked North Dakota State.
Well, Josh, speaking of domes, you asked if any previous Groza winners had played in domes. There are 2. They played for the same team, but this team no longer plays in a dome.
Ooh.
We have 2 former Tulane kickers who have done it. Cairo Santos in 2012 and Seth Marler in 2001.
I was about to guess the Gophers, because they very famously played in the Metrodome for years and years and years before moving to TCF Bank Stadium.
No, it was in fact Tulane, but that was good. That would be interesting if our man Andre Schmidt was able to go on and win it. Coach, you got a second slam for us?
I do. I just kind of was breezing through some of these headlines, and the one I got a kick out of was ex-Vols coach Butch Jones to travel as an analyst for the Tide. I kind of mentioned that, but it's always funny to see it. Lane Kiffin, we talked about him earlier, or we're going to talk about him. We've talked about him in the past and kind of what's going on and, with FAU's program and why they're so good and what's the recipe, all that. Well, here's one thing. He offered a scholarship to Matt Leinert's son, Cole Leinert, at age 11. So he said, Matt, your son, Cole, he has a place here at FAU, so it's getting him early. With Khalil Tate out, Arizona's going to turn to Rich Rod's son to get the start there. In about a week, we're going to see the results of the University of Maryland probe, so keep an eye out for that. And the thing I wanted to kind of ask you about and pick your brain about is probably the biggest story of the week that came out about Nick Bosa deciding.
Yeah, this is something that we should talk about. Yeah, for those of you who aren't aware, Nick Bosa got injured earlier this season, had been rehabbing and thinking about coming back, but ended up dropping out of school to focus on the draft and the NFL. So for me, the biggest gripe I had with this is the fact that he was a team captain. And he was elected a team captain, and he is up and leaving his undefeated number 2 team in the middle of the season. I think that is, some people are going to say, well, he has to do what's best for his, his future and his family and his money. And I understand that. But I also think he he owes his teammates something as well. Josh, how do you feel about this one?
Look, you can make the argument he owes his teammates something, and that's a very, very valid argument. But here's the question. Does he owe the University of Ohio State anything?
No.
Does he owe NCAA football anything?
No.
No. He gave them his blood, sweat, and tears and his body for free. They recouped all the TV revenue. He got nothing out of it. He is a extremely rare case of a 100% lock top 2 or 3 pick in the draft. It's not going to happen very often where a surefire lock 2 or 3 draft has this weird type of situation where they have midseason surgery and all that. I'm fine with it. Stay healthy, young man. At some point, though, I wouldn't mind hearing that, hey, at the conclusion of his NFL career, he goes back to the Ohio State to get that diploma and polish off the hard work he's also done academically. But he doesn't own the NCAA or Ohio State diddly squat. I'm fine with it. Good for you.
Coach, how do you feel about it?
Well, I mean, I kind of agree with Josh. It kind of sucks that such a talented player is choosing to sit out, and you feel kind of like as a fan, maybe you kind of feel cheated, and you kind of feel like he's kind of given up on Ohio State. But this guy's a future to look out for, and I hope this doesn't set too much of a precedence where it's going to be just if you get a pulled hamstring. Oh, I'm done. Yep. Mel Kiper had me as a first-round projection. I pulled my hamstring. I'm not coming back.
Yeah, I think we've already seen guys, skip bowl games and stuff like that, and I understand that. I don't
have a problem with that. But.
Yeah, and I don't have a problem in the abstract. My biggest issue is just the fact that he's a team captain, and that's something I still take seriously. I still think that shows me that his teammates put a certain level of trust in him, and I think I don't want to say he's stabbing them in the back, but he's proving to me that he's sort of not living up to that trust. But I also completely understand not wanting to re-aggravate it and then, sacrifice, millions and millions of dollars in the NFL. Correct. So, all right. Well, quickly, for my second slant, I'm going to do the defensive awards. I will start with the Bednarik and Nagurski trophies, which are sort of just for best overall defensive player, and I'm throwing the Outland in for this player as well. That's Ed Oliver, defensive tackle from Houston, 11.5 tackles for loss already, and he's double teamed on every single play, and yet he's still making plays all of the time. Runner-up there, Quinnen Williams at Alabama has been just an absolute revelation. Obviously, Alabama always has great defenders, but he seems really special along the D-line. Butkus Award, best linebacker, Devin White in LSU and Ben Burr-Kirven of Washington. Those two guys are sort of neck and neck for me. I ended up giving the nod to Devin White at LSU just because that defense has held up better in bigger spots than Washington has. Thorpe Award, this is probably the most off-the-wall award that I'm going to give for best defensive back. I'm giving it to Fresno State's Anthula Kelly. If you guys aren't familiar with Anthula Kelly, he leads the country in passes broken up. He has 13 pass breakups, 3 interceptions, 27 tackles, and has been absolutely fabulous for Fresno State all year. Runner-up, another Alabama player, Deontay Thompson. He keeps the secondary together, has stepped in seamlessly. Well, he was playing alongside Minkah Fitzpatrick, but really took on a leadership role this year. Ray Guy Award for best punter. This one's not even close. Braden Mann at Texas A&M, second Texas A&M player getting an award here on Illegal Motion. Guys, he's averaging 54.4 yards per punt. That is an NCAA record if he keeps it up for the season. The Broyles Award for Best Assistant Coach. This is a tough one. I'm going to go with David Yost, the offensive coordinator from Utah State. The Aggies are having quietly one of the best seasons in all of college football. Utah State is second in the country in scoring offense, and that has a lot to do with their second-year offensive coordinator. Finally, Coach of the Year. Give me Luke Fickell at Cincinnati. The Bearcats are just having an undefeated season coming out of nowhere. They've been great. Love what he has done with that program. And he obviously was the better hire of the former Ohio State defensive coordinators when you compare him and Chris Ash. So, Josh, do you have any beef with any of my awards? You think it should have gone to anyone else?
No, other than I cannot believe I'm about to say this, but just based on how the team has performed, where did Tom Herman come on your Coach of the Year?
He was not in my top 10.
Not in your top 10?
No, definitely not.
Losing to Maryland will do that, evidently.
Yes, it will.
What about Mario Cristobal? Where does he stand?
Mario Cristobal would be up there. He would be on the ballot in the top 5.
And what about for your Broyles? Where does Dave Aranda stand?
Dave Aranda would be up there, too. I feel like soon the Broyles Award is just going to be called the Aranda Award because you could give it to him every single year. But
where does Brian Ferentz come for that?
Brian Ferentz comes in 65th, the exact middle of the college football.
Fair enough.
All right. Well, speaking of awards, gentlemen, I was thinking about them a lot this week and thinking about the Heisman Trophy. And it's been a little bit since we had a running back win the Heisman Trophy. And so I was going back and look at the history of them. Gentlemen, there have been 18 different running backs who have won the Heisman Trophy since 1975. 18. Coach, you get to go up first with Heisman running back since 1975.
Ricky Williams.
Ricky Williams is correct. That was 1998. Josh.
Well, I got to cross that off my list because Ricky was, of course, on mine. This one, people would think that it would be one of the last names we'd say, but actually when you posted that question to us pre-show, Matt, I was just 8 years old when he won. It was one of the first Heisman races that I actually remembered, and he was a fun one. Colorado's the late, great Rashaan Salaam.
Great call. 1994 Heisman Trophy winner. Coach.
Of course, Herschel Walker.
Herschel Walker, 1980.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Coach. If you don't say it, Herschel Walker, it doesn't count. So that's actually a strike, believe it or not.
Josh.
All right. Well, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
You said since 1975.
That includes 1975.
So that includes 1975. So does that mean Archie Griffin's off?
Yes. Archie Griffin is good. Archie, that was 1975 was the second of Archie's 2.
Yeah.
So
that's why I wanted to ask the question.
Archie counts. Good work, Coach.
All right. I got to go with the last winner that played the running back position, and that would be Derrick Henry.
Yep. Back in 2015.
Mm-hmm. The reason I asked that, Matt, was because if you had said that didn't count, my fallback was the other Ohio State running back, Eddie George.
Eddie George, that is also correct. 1995. Coach.
Speaking of Ohio State, I'm going to go nowhere near Ohio State. I'm going to say Barry Sanders.
A different OSU, yes. 1988, Barry Sanders at Oklahoma State.
All right. Well, let's see. This might require another question, but do vacated awards count?
Yes, vacated awards count here.
Then I will go with Reggae Bush.
Reggae Bush, yes, 2005.
I keep asking. I'm the annoying student who raises their hand. I got a question on the test.
Mr. Perkins, I've got a question. Speaking of Alabama running backs, Mark Ingram.
You know it, 2009.
Nice. I'm going to go with Tim Tebow because have you seen his throwing motion?
I'll give that as extra credit right there.
No, the real answer that I would go with is he's the guy who comes up all the time on these, and we always seem to forget about him. But because we've been doing these, because we've been doing these trivias for so long, we always forget about Pittsburgh. And whenever we forget about Pittsburgh, we forget about Tony Dorsett.
You know it, 1976. All right, we're tied 5-5, 0 strikes each. That means 8 guys left. Coach, you're up.
Well, do you know who knows Heisman's? Bo knows Heisman's.
Bo knows Heisman.
Oh, yeah, Bo knows Heisman's.
1985.
Arguably the greatest USC running back to have not murdered someone, Marcus Allen.
That is also correct. 1981.
I love that stat.
I mean, it's a toss-up between Marcus Allen, Reggie Bush, another guy on this list. Coach, you're up.
Lindell White?
Oh, man. The guy that made 34 cool before Herschel, he made it cool in the breadbasket of America. That is one Longhorn, Earl Campbell.
Nice
Earl
one.
Campbell, 1977. Well done.
Nice one. Well, Matt, you were probably hoping that one of us would forget so you could really totally chew our head off, but how about Ron Dane?
Yeah, I was wondering how long it can take you guys to get that. Ron Dane got the Heisman in 99. It was a bit of a career, I think a career achievement award at that point, but still deserving.
Yep.
Coach.
Well, if they were giving Heisman's to freshman players in 1980, Herschel would have gotten it, but this guy got it instead. And I remember it so vividly because Herschel outplayed him the entire year, but they don't give it to freshmen at that point. So George Rogers.
From?
South Carolina.
You know it, South Kakalaki. Josh.
Boy. Let's see. I might be...
There are 3 left.
Might be running out of names. I think he's past 75 because I think he was in one of Tom Osborne's great mid-'80s teams. But Mike Rozier,
you know
ran
it,
a whole lot of yards at Nebraska.
1983. Good pull. All right, 2 guys left. You guys are tied at 8-8. We have the 1978 winner and the 1979 winner left.
All right, so I'm going to take a stab at this one because every Heisman ceremony, this guy is really obnoxious. And I don't know if he's too old or not.
I think I know where you're going.
He always yells, "Boomer! Boomer! Boomer!" That's Billy Sims.
Billy Sims,
So,
1978. Yes, well done, Coach. Josh, for the tie. I dropped a hint about it a little bit earlier.
Yeah, I was a USC guy. I'm sure there's some Trojan fans just going ballistic, but I'll plead it. I don't know who it is.
Coach, you know who it is?
I can look it up and tell you who it is.
No, that's against the rules of the game.
Oh, then I don't know who it is.
Charles White.
Oh.
Charles White, 1979. Coach, you win tonight, 9-8. Coach gets an A+. Josh gets an A-. Well done, both of you.
You only got the A- because you said Tim Tebow.
Well, I could say Eric Crouch too. He threw like a running back also.
True.
That's very that is, for better or for worse. I mean, you could say, what about Cam Newton, RG3?
Cam Newton has plenty. Yeah, Cam Newton and RG3 have plenty good arms.
Lamar Jackson?
He's got a good arm.
He's got a decent arm.
Okay.
He'd be more of a wide receiver, though.
Charlie Ward?
Charlie Ward's a point guard.
Yeah. Didn't Charlie Ward win it when Houston was on probation and not allowed to have a game televised? Not Charlie Ward, Andre Ward.
Andre Ware, yeah.
Yeah, the Houston player.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well done. Well done, gentlemen. All right. Time for some Deep Roots. We are going to start this weekend's Deep Roots in South Carolina, where the last 2 undefeated ACC teams will take off when North Carolina State comes to town. Josh, Clemson, the obvious favorite here. So what do the Wolfpack need to do in order to pull off the upset?
Well, you look at the 2 close calls Clemson's had. Eric Dungy had a pretty good game, not the greatest game, but a pretty good game against an elite defense before Syracuse decided to turtle. He ended with 250 yards, no touchdowns, had a pick. But like I said, he was making some good plays for Cuse. And then the other close call, A&M, Kellen Mond, great day. 430 yards, 3 touchdowns, 0 picks. What's the key to the Wolfpack? It is that passing offense. It's 5th in the country right now, 335 yards per game. It's led by Ryan Finley. He's a senior quarterback. He's had a great career, and his senior season, he's putting up career numbers. Through this hot start for NC State to get them nationally ranked, he's at 69.5% completion percentage, averaging 8.67 yards per attempt, 10 touchdowns, 3 picks, and he's getting a beautiful pocket all the dang time. Just 2 times he's been sacked this season. So Finley's going to need to be on. That pass protection is going to need to find a way against that vaunted Clemson attack. And then here is the other side of the coin. NC State has a decent defense. They're getting there. They're 35th right now in yards per game. They're even better in scoring defense, as they are currently averaging just 16.8 points allowed per game. That's 16th best in the country. So what they need to do to be successful, that passing game needs to deliver an A+, and that good, not necessarily amazing, but a very reliable defense, they need to put in at least an A- effort, I think, to pull off the upset.
Coach, what do you think North Carolina State needs to do?
I think Josh hit the nail on the head there. They just need to put pressure on this freshman quarterback who, he's been shaky at times. He's played like a freshman, let's be honest. And they need to find a way to bottle up Travis Etienne. I think Finley's going to have a great day against them as well. He's one of those that's going to be hard to stop, because one thing I really like about Finley is he gets the ball out quick, and he is just somebody that can give you fits. So Clemson's just got to put together, if they're going to hold off NC State, they've got to put together a complete game, all 3 phases. If they're going to be successful, they've got to do things to be able. They've got to be able to continue with their run game. Etienne, he has 4 consecutive 100-yard games. They've also got to watch out for Adam Choice and Lynn J. Dixon, who also have 100-yard games as well. Tavian Foster is a big play guy. So they've got weapons all over the place. And NC State's just going to have to play good, balanced defense, sound defense. They're going to have to tackle well. They're going to have to throw and catch well. I think they're going to have to do everything. I'm not going to say flawlessly, because that's impossible to do. It's impossible for anybody to be completely flawless, but they're going to have to play a good, clean game and limit their mistakes, limit their penalties, and really just kind of hold on to Clemson's best shot. And then they'll be able to rebuttal too, because NC State is a tremendous team. They do a lot of things well, but Clemson just got to be able. For Clemson to win, they got to be able to put together all the talent they have and get everybody on the same page. Which I don't think they've really been on the same page much this year. It's kind of hard to say against Wake Forest that they were on the same page, because let's face it, Wake Forest played probably one of the most dreadful games you could play. So it's kind of hard to get an idea of what Clemson had in that game. And, NC State, again, they're undefeated for a reason. So it'll be a fun one to watch no matter what. It'll be a close one back and forth. But I think, you got to give credit to the veteran quarterback in this matchup. But I think Clemson might have too much firepower elsewhere, especially on that defensive line, for NC State to be able to handle.
Yeah, that's going to be a great matchup. Like I said earlier in the show, North Carolina State's offensive line has been excellent this year. And I think that if I'm the Wolfpack, I'm going to focus on just shutting down Travis Etienne and making a true freshman quarterback beat me. So, and I mean, again, Trevor Lawrence, as outstanding a freshman quarterback as you're going to find, but I still think that the key to making the Clemson offense go is Etienne. So if you can really key in on him and, make, Lawrence beat you over and over again, I think that's the key for them to win this game. Let's move on, though, to the Pac-12. Colorado's unbeaten season came to an end last week when they went into the Coliseum and lost at the hands of USC. They have to regroup and head to Seattle to take on a Washington team that is also coming off of a tough loss, in their case, to Oregon. Coach, I think the big matchup here is going to be between Laviska Shenault and that Husky secondary. How do you think they'll try to shut down the big play receiver for the Buffs?
Well, I mean, you got to figure out a way to mix up your coverages. You got to figure out a way to bracket him. I think what you see a lot of teams do is they'll do is they'll roll a safety over the top and they'll play the corner down low, even if no matter what coverage it is. They'll try to play – if they're going to play some zone, they'll probably try to play a lot of cover two. They'll try to just mix some things up and get funky. Or they'll play a cover two man and they'll shade a safety over top of Shenault. And then the other safety will kind of play center field. So it'll be kind of a cover one look, but you'll have two guys over there on Laviska. So that's just kind of the game plan, or what the game plan should be if you're going up against Colorado's offense. And of course, always pressure always relieves a lot of coverage issues. If you can get to the quarterback, that always tends to help too. I know I'm John Maddening this, but I might as well say the team who scores the most points is going to win this game. But I think that would be my answer is double Laviskus and then play combo coverage on the other side to kind of match what they can bring you, because it's just one guy. So I'd probably play zone and then play man on Shenault is exactly what I would do probably.
All right, Josh, what do you think is going to be the key to this one?
Well, Washington has become defensive back university. Think about some of the amazing back-end players that Chris Peterson's had in his program. He and his staff do a great job of recruiting specific guys. There's been a story about they pretty much recruit about two guys each year, and they coach them up and they get them to the NFL. Buda Baker, great example of that. So the thing is for Colorado, look, their 5-0 start was amazing. And it's going to sound like I'm taking it away from them, but the fact of the matter is, until UCLA won last weekend, Colorado had beaten two teams without a win. Their best win is 3-3 Arizona State. Their second best win is Colorado State. Fact is, the Buffs just took care of business against a soft schedule. And Colorado, we talked about in the pre-season show, they have a nice program building with McIntyre. They do some good things. They have a nice veteran quarterback at Steven Montez. And we thought their offense could work a little bit through the passing attack, which they obviously have. But they're still not quite there in terms of running with the big dogs. So Colorado's going to be a really nice bowl team this year. It's just a team that racks up blue chippers like USC. It's a little out of reach for them this year. Going to Seattle, a little out of reach for them this year. So I think the Buffs can hang around, but by the end of the day, I fully expect Washington to be triumphant.
All right. Yeah, I expect Washington to win this gun, but my heart wants Colorado to win. But, probably not going to happen. But I still want to talk about this game a little bit because I do like that Buffs offense. And I think they will be able to put at least some pressure on Washington. And I'm ready for Jake Browning to, show up this season. The senior quarterback seems to have regressed since his sophomore year. So, talking about another quarterback that has regressed this season.
I've been watching too much Hornibrook tape.
Yeah, well, I think Brandon Lewerke's been doing the same thing at Michigan State. He did not look great either, but at least they beat Penn State last week.
They're getting it done, though.
This weekend, they are hosting Michigan. These two teams playing for the 111th time on Saturday in East Lansing. Both of these teams, though, do have strong defenses and at times suspect offenses. Josh, how do you see the battle for the Paul Bunyan Trophy playing out?
Well, Michigan State always makes it a game. This is just what they've become under Mark D'Antonio is a team that loves to ruin other teams' seasons. They've done it to Penn State now the last 2 years. They've done it to Ohio State in the past. They continually do it to Michigan. They can be in a position where all Michigan has to do is kneel the ball down, and Michigan will decide to punt it, and then the punter will drop the snap, and we all know how that happens. So Michigan State, this is what they've become. It's exciting times for Michigan State fans, obviously. But I think an underrated aspect of this game is the lack of – is the Michigan team good at all on the road? They've only hit the road twice this year. Once was at Notre Dame, and we know how that went. They lost. The other was at Northwestern, a game where they came out woefully flat, dug a big hole. It took a pretty impressive defensive performance to keep Northwestern from scoring any more points. The offense just got enough barely to win 20-17. Now they have to go into Spartan Stadium. They're going to be rocking. Michigan, their fans still like to call it little brother. And even with all the success they've had against Penn State and Ohio State, Michigan State's entire coaching staff, all the players, all the fans circle this date to make it all happen. So I don't know if they'll get 2 upsets in a row. It's really, really hard to do. But don't be surprised if Michigan State has a second-half lead. Don't be surprised if, even if the Wolverines come back, they win by like 1 point. It's that kind of game. Spartans are going to make it ugly. They have a good enough defensive front seven to do that. Where they've been torched at times this year, like against Northwestern, was the back end of their defense. But the Sparty front seven is good enough. What they need to also do is, we saw Shea Patterson do this against Wisconsin. He's fleet of foot enough. I think every now and then Michigan State is going to have to bite the bullet and maybe have a spy on him, because Wisconsin didn't, and it burned them. But the Spartans, they will find a way to just dirty this game up. I'm not saying dirty plays. I'm saying like grind out drives. They will find a way to take advantage of every penalty Michigan gets called for. D'Antonio has been known to have trick plays. D'Antonio has been known to gamble. He did it against Northwestern. It cost him when he went for a very questionable 4th down in the second half. But Michigan State's going to throw some wrinkles at them. They're going to grind it out. They're going to use that front seven, and they're going to make it a battle.
Coach, how do you feel about this one?
Man, I feel like this is going to be a hell of a game here. I think Michigan State is well coached, and I think if something is working, they're going to stick with it. Unlike what Wisconsin did, which they tried to get too cute, and I think they just tried to feel like, well, hey, we're going to beat you with Alex Hornibrook. When no, you got a pretty decent player back there named Jonathan Taylor, tailback, and you just turn and give him the ball, he'll do some things. But this is in rivalry games, all conventional wisdom goes out the window when you talk about each team, and what they're good at, what they're not good at, and how well they've played in the past means absolutely nothing to this game here. I mean, both teams could be 0-for right now. Both teams could be 0-6 heading into this one, and it wouldn't matter because these teams, they've grown up with each other. Most of the recruits, they've played against each other in high school, all-star games, you name it, they've probably done it. And they've probably lined up across from each other. So the knowledge of your opponent is probably the greatest it's going to be. And these kids they're fired up. And anything can happen. Crazy stuff like a botched punt snap at the end of a game, or some trick play that gets you some onside kick, or somebody botching something is usually how an outcome arises in this game when they're close. So D'Antonio, if you leave him close by, he'll pass you, and he'll get after you and he'll beat you. So I'm very, very much intrigued. I want to see how the quarterback matchup plays out here. Lewerke is, I think I'm pronouncing that right.
Mm-hmm. You are.
I feel so dumb trying to pronounce it, but Lewerke. There we go. Lewerke. I just had like I had some marbles in my mouth or something. I don't know what the hell was going on there, but Lewerke is somebody that desperately needs some consistency. He'll have his work cut out for him against this defensive front for the Wolverines. Shea Patterson, of course, probably one of the more complete quarterbacks, not only in this conference but nationwide. He's playing extremely well. Higdon, the tailback for Michigan, is finding some good run lanes, and the offensive line is doing a great job of creating there. So Michigan, a lot of the talk going on this week is, can Michigan contend for the Big Ten title? Can they finally knock off Ohio State? Well, you know what? In the back of my mind, I said none of that matters because they got Sparty coming up here this week, so this will be a nice test for the Wolverines and kind of just see exactly where they are, and they'll kind of see if that Wisconsin game was just a fluke or an aberration, or they'll just see if that was just Wisconsin playing a horrendous game, or is Michigan for real? We'll see that this week. We'll get a good glimpse of that this week, and kind of preparation for the stretch run there for the Wolverines. So I love this matchup. Georgia's off this week, so this might be my featured game this weekend. So to be honest with you, I don't know who I'm going to pick. Conventional wisdom would tell me to go with the Wolverines here, but part of me wants to pick Sparty. Part of me thinks Sparty will win. So it'll be interesting to kind of see how it all plays out.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a good one. Well, another good one is going to be in the SEC West. Coming off of their big win over Georgia last week at home, LSU are set to host Mississippi State. Coach, Montez Sweat has been one of the best defensive linemen in all of college football this season. You think LSU will be able to keep him off of Joe Burrow and out of their backfield?
Probably not for the most part. They had, DeAndre Walker got back there a couple of times. There's been some successful blitzes that Georgia had. Unfortunately, Georgia never really stuck with any sort of game plan on either side of the ball. So that was kind of, one of those. That was just one of those things you shake your head at. But I don't think their offensive line is as good as they played. I think they're somewhere kind of in between the Florida game and the Georgia game. I think they're somewhere kind of Georgia, they played extremely well. Florida, they didn't play well at all. I think they're somewhere in between there. For LSU, if they're going to contain him, they need to get things out on the perimeter. They need to move quick. They need to double team him, kick him, trap him, whatever they got to do. Whatever they got to do in the run game, and then hope that they win their one-on-one matchup with them in the pass game. So, and of course, get the ball out quick in the pass game, and that should kind of help neutralize them.
All right. Josh, how do you feel about this one here in Death Valley?
Well, it's technically a ranked versus ranked team, but this is why I hate the AP poll sometimes. Mississippi State, how'd they get ranked? They beat Auburn 2 weeks ago, and they had a bye week. So they're sitting at home, and their marquee victory gets even worse because Auburn got beat by Tennessee. This is a team that just a few weeks ago was getting run out of the building by Kentucky and couldn't do anything against that Florida defense. Quite frankly, I think this one's going to get ugly. I wouldn't be surprised if LSU returns the favor of that 41-0 game from last season.
Ooh. All right. Yeah, I think that LSU probably is just a little too talented combined with being at home. But, Mississippi State can run the ball. They can move. They have the number 6 rushing attack, I think, in the country, or number 7. They can definitely move the ball on the ground. But LSU's defense is just so good. Dave Aranda is so good at taking away whatever you're good at and forcing you into doing what you don't want to do, that if Mississippi State is behind and has to pass, they stand no chance against Greedy Williams and the rest of that secondary. Finally, let's head out to another big Pac-12 matchup. This time on the Palouse. Game day will be there for the first time ever. Even though it's not a true Pac-12 After Dark affair, it's going to be a huge one nonetheless when the Ducks, fresh off their big win over Washington, come to Pullman to play the Cougars. Josh, I feel like we're going to see a lot of points in this one. Do you agree with me?
For sure, we're going to see a lot of points, and I think that this is a great scenario for Washington State to pull off the upset. You get Oregon coming off a huge emotional overtime victory. We've seen hangovers plenty of times. Hell, just this season, Miami coming off that emotional come-from-behind victory over their big rival, Florida State. What do? They lay an egg against Virginia. It happens. It's tough with these 18 to 22-year-old kids to get them 100% engaged, especially after a huge game like that.
Not to mention travel.
Yeah, so then you got to travel. And then meanwhile, Washington State, they were sitting at home. They had a bye week. They had 2 weeks to prepare for Oregon. They've had 2 weeks of just nothing but we got to stop A-Bear. We got to stop A-Bear. Because Oregon, they're a nice team. And they could very well win this conference. But so much of their stuff, and I know they're 31st in rushing, but I just get the feeling that so much of their stuff is reliant on Justin Herbert. That I think if you shut him down, because he is also a nice part of that running attack. He chips in some timely yards, but I just get the feeling that that rushing stat is not who this true Oregon team is. And I think if they are backed in a corner, they're going to turn into a pass-heavy team with Herbert. So that's what Wazoo's probably been working on the last 2 weeks.
Coach, what say you?
Well, what say me? I think this is a game that, I think Josh hit the nail on the head with the hangover thing. I think it's just one of those things that a lot of teams that come off of huge wins, huge emotional wins, they have to watch out for. And I think that's kind of one of the hidden points of the game we just previewed with LSU. They've had back-to-back just emotionally draining games. One was a defeat, one was a victory. So they're going to have that cut out for them as well. Luckily, they're at home, though. But for this game, you can't discount the team that's been on a bye. They've had nothing but practice against the scout team and what Oregon does and what Oregon brings to the table. Herbert, though, there's not really much you can do to replicate him in practice. They're just extremely talented. They're extremely fast, and they do a lot of things really well. Offensively, C.J. Verdell is somebody that can be dangerous as well. He's the one that had the walk-off touchdown in the Washington game. And so offensively, they're loaded for bear. Defensively, they're playing extremely well as in addition to that, something that Oregon's not necessarily used to. Washington State, they are tremendous as well. They are an Air Raid team. They have an East Carolina grad transfer, actually. Gardner Minshew is the top passer in the Pac-12. So who would have thought an ex-Pirate playing for the Pirate would do well? Who would have thunk it? But he is averaging 403 yards per game. He's completing passes at a 68.7% clip. So he's got 19 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. So he's been nothing short of excellent in Luke Falk's absence as he moved on due to graduation and the NFL. So a lot of big things for Washington State. Washington State has proved on several occasions that they don't need to be balanced in order to win. They've had a game in which they won with almost 500 yards of total offense, and 0 of that was rushing yards. So this will be just kind of interesting for Washington State. What they have to do is do what they do. Spread you out, nickel and dime you, take a few shots over the top, just to back you off. They'll eventually hit some of those, and they just got to keep working their stuff, working their concepts, working their tempos, things like that. Keeping Oregon off balance. And for Oregon, they've just got to let Justin Herbert do what he does, and it's going to be kind of a game of whose philosophy can win out. They're both tempo, they're both spread. One's more of an air raid, pass it around the yard. The other's kind of let's run our spread offense through our quarterback primarily, at both as a runner and a passer. So it'll be kind of a battle of which philosophy kind of wins out. This might come down to whoever's first to 60 is going to win this game. So the first one to 60 is going to win this game is kind of how I see it playing. There's going to be a ton of points. Not much defense played here. If you are a defensive enthusiast like a lot of the SEC fans are, don't watch this game because it's going to set defense back about 10 years because you're going to be wondering, well, why don't they just line up against air? And so that's kind of how I see it.
Yeah, I think Tracy Claeys has done a real outstanding job with this Washington State defense. And, they've made big gains both last season and this season. And, it's been a big boon for that program because the Pirates always had great offenses but never really had a good defense. Now that he's got, decent defense backing him up, this Washington State team can go pretty far. And I think they're going to pull off the upset here. It's going to be so crazy in that stadium this weekend just because game day is there. Obviously, Washington State has the tradition with the flag at every single game day, finally in town for the first time ever. It is going to be an absolute doozy. So I hope that... I
think ironically they should not have any Ole Crimson flags up.
That would be fun. That would be fun. All right, now, time for our final segment for little spread formations. Hasn't been going that great on the season. I'm in the lead at 17-21-1. Josh is 15-22-1. And Coach is bringing up the rear 13-24-1. Fortunately for us, though, we have a guest picker in for the second week in a row. Ladies and gentlemen, my dear father, Fred Perkins. Say hello to everyone, Dad.
Hi, everybody. Nice to be here.
He is in.
What's up, Fred?
He's here from Hanover, New Hampshire, just really to talk about Rutgers football, let's face it. We'll get to them in a minute, but we have 5 other matchups to get to before that. So we will start in the Glass Bowl, where Toledo are 1-point favorite at home against the Bulls of the University of Buffalo. Josh, what side are you on?
Well, we all love the UB Bulls. They're a team that we talked about. They're a team that we picked to win the East. Here's the problem. Toledo lost last week at East Michigan. You guys know the last time Toledo lost back-to-back games in the MAC?
Oh, it's probably like 2014 or something like that.
The Byzantine Empire?
They lost back-to-back MAC games in 2013 when they lost their season finale and then lost they did not lose the title game. They lost the game that would have gotten them to the title game, and then in a game that they didn't no longer care about, they got upset by Akron. But nevertheless, the fact is this team is the class of the MAC. They don't lose back-to-back conference games. As much as I'd love the Bulls to win, the smart thing to do is take the Toledo Rockets.
All right, Coach, how do you feel about this one?
Well, in a much shorter rant, I picked them to win the conference, so I got to follow suit and pick them to beat the Bulls.
All right. Dad, how do you feel about Buffalo and Toledo here?
I thought Buffalo was looking a lot better earlier in the season than they have recently, so I think Toledo is the choice.
Buffalo has been without Anthony Johnson, their stud wide receiver. I still believe in Tyree Jackson, though. I picked Buffalo to win the MAC at the beginning of the year. I'm not going against my guns at this point, so I'll be on the other side of you three, and I will take the Bulls as 1-point dogs in Toledo. Let's move on then to the SEC. Auburn, coming off of that big loss, are still 4-point favorites on the road in Oxford against Ole Miss. Josh, who do you like here?
Well, this is going to be crazy, but I gave Ole Miss a little bit of a look to get into my poll. They're quietly 5-2. They didn't make the poll, but they are quietly 5-2. And I'll tell you what, Auburn, we could talk about their issues offensively. We have. But that defense has crept to just 53rd in the nation. That's okay. Nothing to write home about. I think that explosive Ole Miss offense gets a win at Auburn's expense.
Coach?
Josh, I'm pretty sure that you have seen my cheat sheet because Auburn is tail spinning, and they're tail spinning fast. And they all of a sudden, they can't really stop anybody. They can't score any points. They can't do much of anything. Right, and Ole Miss is going to expose that. Give me the Rebels, hotty toddy.
Hotty toddy. Dad, how do you feel about this one?
I agree with Coach and Josh. I think Auburn has gone into a tailspin. It's a downhill spiral.
Yeah, they're in a complete nosedive right now, especially their offensive line. Ole Miss still has a lot of talent, even if they haven't necessarily gelled as a defensive unit. They still have a lot of big time recruits there on the defensive line. So I like Ole Miss in this one as well. All right, next, let's head over to Lincoln, Nebraska. Somehow, some way, Nebraska, winless Nebraska, is 4-point favorites at home against Minnesota. Josh, who are you taking?
Well, Minnesota has lost 3 straight games. So despite Nebraska's terrible start to the season, I think maybe some prognosticators are looking at that. But Minnesota's played a little bit better these last 2 weeks. And Nebraska, for all the razzle-dazzle they have offensively, moving the ball really well, they are awful inside the red zone. They're awful with turnovers. They're awful with penalties. And all that has added up to finishing 109th right now in scoring offense, while their defense is giving up 38.3 points per game. That's 118th in the nation. That is just dreadful on both accounts. And until Nebraska wins a game, frankly, I'm not going to pick them. I'll ride or die with the Gophers.
All right. Coach, how do you feel about this one?
Well, Nebraska played so good for 3.5 quarters until they faltered, but they're not going to falter this time. They're going to go 1-6. They're going to finally break the streak. They're going to finally put all 4 quarters together, and they're going to come out victorious against the Gophers.
All right. Dad?
I agree with Coach. I think Nebraska has ended up losing late in a couple of games, but they've been getting closer, and I think this time they'll finally break into the win column.
Not so fast, my friend. You are not familiar with this Minnesota defense, clearly. This Minnesota defense, I still believe in this unit. They might not have much of an offense, but, I'm not as concerned. Their defense should shut down anything Nebraska throws at them. Josh, I'm going to be with you here. Give me the Goofs. All right, let's head next then to the state of West Virginia, where Marshall is hosting Florida Atlantic. The Owls are 3-point favorites on the road. Josh, what side are you on?
Yeah, I think FAU's respect we give based on what they did last year is allowing them to cash checks that their actual on-field performance doesn't really allow. They got mollywopped by Oklahoma, Central Florida. They couldn't beat a middle-of-the-road Middle Tennessee team on the road. We've talked about it before, Huntington, West Virginia. That can be a nasty environment. Marshall has the better record. I'm not sure they have the better team talent-wise, but in terms of being the sum of all their parts, I actually think the Thundering Herd are having a little bit better season this year. I'm going to take Marshall as home favorite or home underdogs.
Home dogs.
Yeah.
Cool. Dogs. What's up, home dog? No, I think that for 2 reasons I'm picking FAU. One, because I'm in last place and I got to do something different anyway. And 2, this FAU team is still extremely talented, although they haven't played as consistently as you want them to or as they've wanted to. But this is one of those games where they're the road favorite, but they're being kind of treated as, wow, they're road favorites, okay? Yeah, you couldn't beat MTSU. Okay, go ahead and get it. So they kind of feel a little bit to me, they kind of feel a little bit disrespected, but FAU, don't worry, I got your back.
All right, Dad.
I'm going with Marshall on this. I don't have any good reason for going either way. Just simply, I'll give them the home team advantage.
All right, yeah, I'm with you there, Dad. But my reasoning is that although they might not have the same talent that FAU does, I still think Doc Holliday is one of the best coaches in that conference, especially at home. That team's going to be really tough to beat. So give me the Thundering Herd. All right, time for our favorite part of the week, the Kansas line. This week, they are in West Texas at Lubbock. They are 20.5-point underdogs on the road against the Red Raiders. Josh, what side are you on?
Well, Texas Tech's going to win, but the question is by how much? And with Alan Bowman still out for that injury, we saw Texas Tech change their offense in a week, and it resulted in just a 17-14 win against TCU. I expect the Raiders to win, like I said, but I think they kind of gut it out again and win by about 14 to 17 points, meaning I'm going to take Kansas in those points.
Coach?
Ooh. That's a bold deal. I'm going to say the Red Raiders are they're looking and blowout minded right now. I think they're at home. They need some good juju for the stretch run of the season. Yes, I said juju. Coach GQ, I think, is going to win by 21 points.
All right, Dad.
I don't think they can win by 21 points, so I'll go with Kansas.
All right. Guys, Dad, I'm with you again on this one. I originally came in thinking it was going to be Texas Tech. I was going to take Texas Tech, but you know what? You're right. Their offense has sputtered a little bit since Bowman went down, but their defense has stepped up. I still think that they can be run on a little bit. Kansas has a pretty decent running back in Puka Williams Jr., so I'll take Texas Tech to win, but Kansas to cover. Finally, we get to our favorite line of the week after Kansas. That is Rutgers. This week, they are hosting the Wildcats of Northwestern. Said Wildcats are 20.5-point favorites on the road in East Piscataway. Josh, who are you taking?
Well, I'll tell you who is really glad to play Rutgers, and that's going to be Northwestern, because their total defense right now is a very Pat Fitzgerald opposite type team right now. They're only 41st they're 71st in defense. They are tied right now for 41st in interceptions. So why do I bring this up? Well, Maryland, who got to play at Rutgers last week, picked off so many passes, 5 in fact, that they jumped up to second in the country in interceptions. Rutgers is a pick-off machine. They keep throwing this true freshman, Artur Satowski, out there. He's up to 3 touchdowns to 15 interceptions. So Northwestern's going to get a lot of opportunity to have their offense out there because they're going to pick off probably at least 3 passes. I wouldn't be surprised to see them be above that, quite honestly. So I'm going to say Northwestern covers this massive spread.
Coach.
Northwestern is licking their chops here. Sorry, Fred, but I think Northwestern's going to roll here. They're feeling good about themselves. They had a tremendous performance against Nebraska last week. They're going to continue rolling. They're going to continue playing for that good bowl spot. And, this Northwestern team, I watched a little bit of that game. They're pretty exciting. They were pretty exciting, at least on Saturday. I don't know how they are on a regular basis, but they kind of hooked me in for a little bit on Saturday.
All right, Dad, it's your alma mater pick here.
That I think Josh was a little bit too kind to Rutgers on the interception. The quarterback threw 14 passes. 5 were received by the opposition and 2 by the offense. That isn't touchdowns. That's receptions.
Yes.
With that going into the game, I don't think they can cover the 3 touchdowns. So I think Northwestern will walk away with this.
Yeah, it's definitely Northwestern here, without a doubt. And so while we have you, Dad, on the show, you were fortunate enough to be at the 100th anniversary game of the first game ever played between Rutgers and Princeton. What was that atmosphere like?
That was exciting. I was a senior in 1969, and so I had 50-yard line seats. And it was an exciting game, and Rutgers won again. I think they only won about 4 games with Princeton over the 100 years. They played 80-some. But it was exciting, and it was a fun game to go to. Unfortunately, I don't see Rutgers playing Princeton next year for the 150th anniversary.
So, gentlemen, I think our show needs to start a petition to get Rutgers and Princeton to play next year for the 150th anniversary. What do you guys think?
I mean, I would be all for it. My one question is, I've actually never seen an Ivy League team play an FBS member. I'm wondering if that's their own conference rule.
They haven't done that in a long time. I don't know if that's a conference rule or not. I believe it is, but I would have to go back and double check.
I bet Yale's pretty upset. They could take on In-State Folk Connecticut and have a nice day.
They could trash In-State Folk Connecticut. Are you kidding me?
Well, yeah. I mean, if they're in a slump offensively, just schedule UConn and you're good to go.
You could say the same thing about Harvard with UMass.
Or Dartmouth and New Hampshire.
Yeah, well, but New Hampshire's at least still an FCS team.
Yeah.
But
the University of Georgia was smart because they scheduled UMass late in the year.
Yeah, they're playing them this year late in the year, Coach?
Yeah.
Like week 14 or something like that, right before you play Georgia Tech?
Yeah, you know the week of
the SEC joke week?
The pillow fight week, yeah. Yeah, it's during that week.
All right, excellent.
See, we at least stayed within FBS, so
good for you. Good for you. I saw that. I saw a graphic though about of all the conferences playing FCS teams, the SEC has far and away more than any other Power 5 conference. The SEC as a conference is playing 14 FCS schools, whereas I think the next highest conference is I believe it's the ACC who are playing like 6. So, but I guess it does offset the fact that the SEC in conference competition is about as tough as it comes. So, Dad, I want to thank you for joining us on the show this evening.
Oh, it's always a pleasure to see you and talk to Coach and to Josh.
All right.
Well, Fred. It was great talking to you.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Good to hear your voice again.
Okay. Well, that's going to do it for us here, I think, Josh, unless you have any final words.
Yeah, we buried the lead. This is Arkansas's best last chance to get a win. They host 1-5 Tulsa Golden Hurricanes. And when you get a team and a matchup this bad, you're not going to find strength versus strength. But what we do have is not a weakness versus not a weakness. Tulsa's offense is pretty putrid, but they're 32nd in rushing yards. You can scoot a little bit on the ground. Arkansas is one of the worst teams defensively that probably the SEC has seen in quite a while. But that's because they cannot stop something we like to call the forward pass. But what Arkansas can sometimes do is slow down your rushing attack. They're, believe it or not, 51st in rushing yards per game allowed. So maybe that rush defense slows down Tulsa. Maybe Arkansas's very erratic offense. I was quite surprised to see that a Chad Morris coach team is currently 116. That's in points against. They're currently 90th in points for. I was surprised to see that. But maybe Arkansas gets off the schneid.
All right, Coach, any final words from you?
Yeah, the Hilltoppers, yes, those Hilltoppers are off this week, and I'm talking about the Hillwood variety. So it'll be kind of a relaxing weekend for Coach because he doesn't have to worry about any games. I can just kind of sit back, get prepared for Beach as we close out the season. If the Hilltoppers win next Friday against Beach, we will finish third in the region. So we still have a chance at finishing third in the region if we're victorious over the Beach Buccaneers. Otherwise, we'll finish fourth, and we'll play probably the winner of Shelbyville versus Page High School. And for those of you who have no idea what I'm talking about, that's okay. You don't have to. Just follow us on Max Preps. We do have the number 1 quarterback in the country. So not in the country, but in the state of Tennessee. He's 18th nationally in passing yards. He is 337 shy of 3,000. So, needless to say, there ain't going to be much running happening next Friday. So, be on the lookout for that.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for us here tonight on the Illegal Motion College Football Podcast. So, on behalf of our own offensive coordinator, the coach, Corey Burton, here in the Music City, and our intrepid blogger from Big Ten and Counting, Josh Cook, up there in the Windy City, this is the Professor in Nashville saying so long and see you next time on the Illegal Motion College Football Podcast.
So long, everybody. Put your shoes in.
Thanks for listening to the Illegal Motion College Football Podcast. To get in touch with the show, email us at illegalmotionpodcast@gmail.com or follow us on Twitter at illegal_motion.